Welcome to Season 9. It brought a lot of changes across the board, and a new map, but what interested me the most was the new game mode, Point Break. I've played it almost exclusively since Season 9 came out. I haven't even been ranked yet. I've seen some people's first impression be that the game mode favors the attackers, and I felt that way for the first few rounds, but I quickly realized that this is only because the tactics my team and myself have used are just wrong. But I'm getting ahead of myself. For those who haven't heard, let's go over the basics. The way I think about it is that this game mode is like the finals version of the old Call of Duty game mode Domination. You have one side defending a few objectives, and the other side attacking. The defenders have unlimited lives, but the attackers start with only 30. The catch is here that if the attackers revive a teammate instead of having them respawn themselves, the attackers get the coin back. The last part to understanding the basics of this game mode is that there are 3 stages. All the stages are basically the same, but it just prevents the defenders from having to defend 9 objectives at once. Instead, they come as 3 for each stage. All objectives have to be destroyed by the attackers in order to advance to the next stage. When the attackers clear a stage, they get 15 more lives, even possibly going over the 30 that they started with. The win conditions are these. If the attackers destroy all 9 objectives, they win. If the attackers' coins hit 0, the defenders win. I do want to make a note here that, unlike in some other game modes, the attackers lose a coin as soon as they die, not when they respawn. Enough of the basics. Now the fun part, tactics. We've all been playing Point Break wrong. You see, the natural inclination for the defenders is to guard all 3 of their objectives. Let's take some diagrams inspired from history to understand this better. Assume an even distribution of defenders try to guard their objectives. That means 2 here, 3 here, and 3 here. No map has the objectives perfectly aligned like this, so let's make it look a little bit more like a real match, say Cis Horizon. If the attackers were nice, they'd also break their team up and you'd have these nice, friendly bouts of gentlemanly fighting, like the mythical Knights of Yore, or more recently the dogfights in airplanes in World War I. But the finals isn't of yore, at least not in this season, it's an amalgamation of every time period. Anyway, hopefully you're already seeing how silly this would be from the attackers' perspective. Why wouldn't they just group up and kill one of the objectives at a time? Bonus points if 1 or 2 break off once it's armed, sneak around and arm the other 2 objectives when the whole defending team rushes to protect the first one. An extra point I want to make is that it takes about 5 seconds to arm an objective and about 10 seconds to defuse it. The way these mechanics are created really incentivizes the attackers to plant quickly, jump in and out, and attack whenever a defender is trying to defuse it. That puts an even greater importance on preventing the attackers from arming the bomb at all. For the attackers, it gives them the freedom to do silly things like going off by themselves to arm an objective, since even if they die, it still takes at least one of their enemies out of the match for almost as long as they're out of the match. Usually, though, once one is armed, more than one defender goes out to try to defuse it, so it's just a great way to sow chaos for the defenders. It seems like the natural tactic for defenders is to spread thin and for the attackers to group up. This is exactly what I've seen across most of the matches I've played so far. The defenders sometimes still win, since sometimes they're just better at getting kills, or they're better coordinated and such, but hopefully you're seeing now that playing this way is actually quite silly for the defenders, and maybe the more tactically inclined of you can see where this is going. See, by the time the first 2 objectives in a phase are destroyed, the defenders usually have pulled themselves together and guarded the 3rd objective quite extensively. There's plenty of barricades, turrets, mines, and such that really make it better for the defender at this point. That by itself could give the defenders a chance to hold the line. But this situation is actually a nightmare for the attackers. Not only is it generally easier to defend in this game than attack as long as the defenders have had time to prepare, but any attacker that dies in the line of fire provides a lose-lose situation for his buddies. Because of the coin imbalance, when one attacker dies, his buddies either have to put themselves in danger to grab the statue and then take themselves out of the fight for 5 seconds to revive, meaning that losing one guy is kind of like losing 2, or they have to keep pushing and let their buddy use up a precious coin. And if they keep pushing and die, that problem snowballs with the attackers. And since the defenders have unlimited lives, they can wait patiently for their buddies to use coins to respawn, since they have unlimited, but the attackers don't have that luxury. Waiting and doing nothing means their teammates either have to use precious coins to come back, or they can have to stay dead, while the defenders can group up, guard the attackers as statues, and shore up their defenses. There are very few positive end results for the attackers when trying to arm the last objective, and it'll usually result in deep losses for the attackers' coin reserves. True, if they can get past this 3rd objective, then they get 15 more lives, which is basically 2 lives per person. Anyway, this is a breaking point of the match, or if you'd please, the point break. For the attackers, it's like trying to storm the trenches in World War I, which famously was absent the gallantry of fighting that was present in the air. Therefore, there are a lot of small changes in tactics that can help defenders play better and even out the chances for them to win. But there's one really big one that I think needs to become the new meta, and I'm putting it first so that more viewers will see it. Because I'm tired of losing as the defenders. The big change is this. Let one of the 3 objectives die.
Let it die, let it die, let it shrivel up and... Come on, who's with me, huh?
The defenders will never properly be able to defend 3 objectives at once. As I've explained, it just doesn't make sense for the attackers to play in a way that could let this happen. If you just let one of them die, then you've now eliminated that hasty rush to regroup at the other objectives and given your team plenty of time to prepare their defense. However, starting with 3 is actually still helpful when you use this tactic. Instead of thinking about the 3 objectives as 3 things to defend, think of it as you have 2 to defend. You just get to pick where they are by forgetting about the 3rd. Oh, and make sure to pick 2 that are near each other and easy to defend. Now, it may really hurt in the gut to feel like you're giving up something that is your job to defend, but you're going to be able to have a better chance to prevent a phase to end if you can hold on to your objectives longer. Plus, since both teams are more centralized, you'll bleed the attackers dry much easier because you'll be able to watch over the enemy statues to ensure they go gently into that good night. It wouldn't be fair to give defenders a better strategy without explaining how the attackers might be able to counter it. I will explain the counter, but unless you're playing as a group of 8 very coordinated attackers, I think it will be extremely rare for the attackers to be able to pull it off. Essentially, you do the reverse of the defenders' strategy. Leave the unguarded objective alive. You can focus as a team on where the defenders actually are. If they picked 2 to guard, then you still outnumber them 2 to 1 until some defenders start pulling away to protect the one the attackers are attacking. You'd have to resist the urge to go blow up the under-defended objective until you've blown up one of the defended objectives, because once you blow up the first one, then you'll hopefully be in a situation where the defenders are disorganized and thus not as capable of protecting the other 2. The goal you're aiming for is to get the last 2 objectives armed at the exact same time so that the defenders are forced to split up. Once again, this goes to which team is better coordinated, and ultimately, if both sides are very coordinated, this makes the fight a stalemate. This is still a win for the attackers since you can eliminate the possibility for a disadvantage situation for the attackers when they need to arm one objective while the entire team is defending it. The best then for the defenders is to group up on a single objective to disarm it, and you're back to square one if successful. In this example, the best thing for the defenders then is to group up on one of the objectives, make sure it's disarmed, and then you're back to having just one objective to defend if you're successful. However, if you've done this, then this is also providing the attackers the opportunity to revive all of the fallen near the second objective that has exploded, and the worst result for the attackers' effort is what would have normally happened anyway. Okay, so some other little tips I'll share that hopefully will help both sides. This part will be pretty quick though. So first, let's talk about gadgets. Honestly, the mechanics of this game mode are perfect for the finals. Every single gadget is useful in this game mode, from deployables like mines and turrets, to the defib to keep your team in the action for more of the time, to grenades to smoke out your opponents hiding around an objective, explosives to get around defenses and to flank your enemies, and more. Just use your favorite gadgets and get to work. Let's talk about weapons. Most weapons are also useful in this game mode, although some are still more useful than others. I've noticed that time to kill is king in this game mode since most of the fighting is close range and high OSPUs. Since the highest time to kill weapons are generally short range, Point Break is also great for melee weapons of all kinds since everybody will be using short range weapons. Thirdly, let's talk about classes. Generally, I'll say a good mix of gadgets, weapons, and classes is probably the best course of action here. Don't go in as a team of all lights or all mediums because it probably won't work well unless your opponents are doing the same thing. Figure out a good synergy with your team, but it honestly isn't that hard because the increased player counts generally increases the variety anyway. One final note. Maybe the meta will show that it's best for the defenders to actually let 2 of the 3 objectives die, and then for their whole team to just pick the one out of the 3 that's the easiest to defend. Then 100% of the fighting will be like those World War I trench rushing type fights. That's a little bit too far of a tactic for me, but I'm interested to see how things go in the future. For now, don't forget to let it shrivel up and die, and happy holidays.